Welcome to Learning English, where you are ready to level up your skills. Here, our method is learning through stories that are slow, clear, and fun. Just listen, relax, and let yourself enjoy the journey. 1. An introduction. Donald Trump is a well-known global figure who served as the President of the United States. This story starts during his second term as president. Leading a large nation like the United States grants the president significant power, making decisions that impact people not only within his country, but across the globe. During this period, President Trump made a very important announcement. This announcement concerned global trade, which is the system of countries buying and selling goods and services among themselves. It forms the backbone of the world's economy. Any change in trade regulations can have massive consequences. There exists an influential group of nations, known as BRICS. The name BRICS is an acronym formed from the first letters of its original core members: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. In time, other nations also joined this alliance. Collectively, the BRICS countries represent a huge portion of the world's population. They are steadily gaining importance in the global economy and in international dialogues. President Trump's announcement was specifically about nations. Connected to the BRICS group, he stated that if any country supported the policies of the BRICS nations' policies he deemed anti-American, that country would face a new regulation from the United States. This new rule involved taxes on products sold to the United States, which are known as tariffs. President Trump declared there would be an additional tariff of 10%. This means if a country sold an item worth $100 to the U.S., the American buyer would be required to pay an extra $10 in taxes. This action makes the imported goods more expensive. President Trump was firm about this new regulation, stating there would be no exceptions. This implied the rule would apply to any nation he believed was backing anti-American BRICS policies without exception. The announcement was a major global event, signaling that the United States, under his leadership, was adopting a very firm stance on international trade. And the BRICS group, it suggested that relationships between the U.S. and many other nations could shift. The world stage was set for a significant policy change. A policy is the set of rules and plans a government decides to follow. This new tariff policy marked a considerable shift in America's strategy for dealing with countries worldwide, particularly those allied with BRICS. This first chapter introduces President Trump, the concept of global trade, the BRICS group, and the critical announcement of an extra 10% tariff. This declaration set the stage for a new game in international relations, compelling countries to reconsider their choices and alliances with both the U.S. and the BRICS group. This chapter serves as a neutral starting point to delve into these significant world events and their potential developments too. What is BRICS? BRICS is the designation for a block of countries. The term was originally coined many years ago by an economist. The name BRICS is derived from the initial letters of the group's founding members. The first four nations were Brazil, Russia, India, and China. All of these countries are large and influential in their respective regions. Later, another country, South Africa, was admitted to the group. This expanded the name to BRICS, encompassing 5 nations for a period. More recently, the group has grown substantially larger. Numerous other countries have become members, including Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. As a result, the BRICS group now comprises 11 member states in total. This alliance is immense. The combined population of all these countries accounts for more than half of the world's total population. This scale makes the BRICS nations incredibly influential on the global stage. The countries within BRICS aim to cooperate to increase their collective strength in the world. They discuss matters of trade, finance, and other significant global issues. Their goal is to have a greater influence on how international affairs are conducted. They hold regular meetings to discuss their strategies and plans. Their discussions focus on improving trade conditions for themselves and altering certain global financial regulations. They also address topics of peace and international conflicts. The BRICS group is expanding and gaining in importance as a bloc that seeks global change and a larger role for its members. Point 3. Trump's new rule. President Donald Trump announced a new regulation concerning trade. Trade is the process of countries buying and selling items to one another. It is a vital component of the global system. President Trump declared a new rule for countries trading with the United States. This rule involves a new tax on goods, known as a tariff, which is an extra charge on products imported into America. The new rule specifies that if a country supports particular policies, the policies in question are those of the BRICS group, a bloc of collaborating nations. President Trump described these policies as anti-American, meaning they oppose America's interests or objectives. Therefore, if a nation endorses BRICS policies that President Trump labels anti-American, the U.S. will apply an additional 10% tax on their goods. This represents a substantial price increase for importing goods from those countries into the United States. President Trump conveyed this critical news in a modern fashion. Instead of a lengthy, televised address, he posted it simply and directly. On social media, his message was read rapidly by countless people worldwide. His communication was clear and straightforward. He issued a warning to the nations that could be impacted by this new regulation and also explained his rationale. He argued that these tariffs would benefit America and its economy, believing they will support American jobs. When foreign goods become more expensive due to the added tax, consumers in America may opt to purchase more products made within the country. This can stimulate domestic manufacturing and protect jobs for American workers. President Trump, therefore, presented the extra 10% tax as a strategy to strengthen America's economy and support its businesses and workforce. He was very resolute and clear about this new rule, stating plainly that there would be no exceptions. This means the policy applies to every country that supports anti-American BRICS policies as he defines them, with no possibility of exemption. This is a powerful statement from President Trump, highlighting his firm position on international trade and the activities of countries aligned with the BRICS group. It establishes a distinct condition for trading with the United States. These taxes are called tariffs. But what prompted this decision? The reason is tied to the group of nations known as BRICS. The BRICS countries had their own ideas about how the global economy ought to function, and they didn't always concur with the trade rules employed by the United States. During their meetings, the BRICS nations frequently discussed these trade regulations. They expressed concern that the tariffs the United States was imposing on foreign goods were detrimental to global trade, making the exchange of goods between countries more difficult or unfair. Furthermore, the BRICS countries discussed reforming the international monetary system. They proposed changing the rules of major global financial institutions and debated how the value of different national currencies is determined. These ideas from the BRICS nations conflicted with the perspective of the United States. When the BRICS group discussed these changes and criticized U.S. trade policies, it created tension. The President of the United States interpreted these actions by BRICS as being contrary to American interests, believing that supporting such policies was anti-American. Consequently, he decided to use tariffs as a response. He announced that nations choosing to back the BRICS policies would face additional taxes on the products they export to the United States. This was a forceful message regarding his stance on global trade and economic power. Thus, the new tariffs were announced, in part, due to the diverging views on trade and finance between the United States and the BRICS group, highlighting disagreements on how the world's economy should be managed. The BRICS countries convened for a meeting in Brazil, bringing together many high-ranking officials from these nations to discuss numerous world events. Following their discussions, they issued a joint statement to communicate their collective opinion on various issues. A major topic was the new tariffs, or extra taxes on goods. The BRICS nations expressed deep concern, stating that imposing more taxes on trade was harmful and could damage the global economy. They argue that these tariffs reduce free trade and disrupt business operations across borders. The BRICS statement noted that such tariffs create uncertainty. making it difficult for people and businesses to plan for the future of trade. Leaders also emphasized their desire for global peace and spoke about military actions. They specifically referenced recent attacks on Iran that occurred in June, stating their disapproval of these military strikes. They considered these actions to be wrong and potentially in violation of international law. Experts on international business also weighed in, remarking that it is not simple for countries to cease trading with a nation like China. China manufactures many vital products purchased worldwide. For instance, China is a critical supplier of parts for electric cars, batteries, and special materials known as rare earths, which are essential for modern technologies like magnets. These experts pointed out that there are few alternative global sources for these goods, making it very difficult for countries to quickly switch their suppliers. Many leaders attended the BRICS summit in Brazil. The leaders of India and South Africa were present in person. Russia's leader participated via a video link from his country. While China's leader did not attend himself, his premier represented him. They all gathered to discuss the global situation and their group's future plans. The story of the new tariffs includes a timeline for their implementation. Initially, there was a deadline of July 9th for countries to secure a deal with the United States. If no agreement was reached by that date, the new tariffs could take effect. However, the start date was revised. U.S. officials announced that the new date for the potential start of the tariffs would be August 1st. This provided countries with a little more time for negotiations and potential agreements. U.S. officials confirmed August 1st as the new effective date and outlined the plan. They would send letters to various countries informing them of the new tariff rate and explaining the additional 10% tax on their goods. These letters were crucial, serving as a clear warning about what would happen if a trade deal with the United States was not reached before. August 1, high-level U.S. officials reiterated that if trade agreements were not finalized, the tariffs would commence on August 1st. One official stated that on that date, countries would revert to a pre-existing higher tax level if they failed to make progress on a deal. This emphasized that the August 1st date was firm for the tariff implementation. If no agreements were made, the change from July 9th to August 1st was confirmed by multiple sources within the U.S. government. This chapter outlines the timeline for when the new tariffs could start and the steps the U.S. was taking to prepare for that date if deals were not reached. The president's recent warning about 10% tariffs on countries supporting certain BRICS policies was not his first use of tariffs as a strategic tool. A look back reveals a pattern in his trade-related actions and statements. Since the beginning of his term, the president has announced several new import taxes on goods entering the United States. His consistent justification has been that these taxes would bolster American businesses and protect jobs for American workers. It's a central theme of his trade policy. In April, he made a significant announcement on a day he called Liberation Day, unveiling numerous new taxes on goods from around the world. These were aggressive measures, but he temporarily halted the most severe ones, allowing a 3-month window for countries to negotiate trade deals. This negotiation period was originally set to conclude on July 9th. These past actions demonstrate the president's approach to trade. However, a specific warning regarding BRICS countries predated the current 10% tariff threat. In 2024, the president issued a different, arguably stronger, threat. He warned that if BRICS nations proceeded with a plan to create their own currency to challenge the US dollar, they would face a staggering 100% tariff on their goods. This previous warning about a BRICS currency and the associated 100% tariff is significant. It reveals a long-held belief in the paramount importance of the US dollar in the global economy. It also demonstrates a readiness to use high import taxes to counter any actions perceived as a threat to the dollar or the existing global financial order. Therefore, the current 10% tariff warning is part of a larger history. It is consistent with past actions of imposing import taxes and aligns with previous warnings directed at BRICS. Concerning the dominance of the US dollar, these events illustrate a clear and consistent line in the president's thinking on international trade. and finance, the new trade policy has arrived, compelling countries to think deeply about the future. These regulations have the potential to alter how nations trade with one another, creating fresh challenges for many. Countries now face a critical decision. Will they comply with the new rules? Or will they align more closely with blocs like BRICS? This is a tough choice with consequences for their economies and international relationships. The BRICS countries have voiced their concerns, believing these extra taxes on goods are detrimental to the world economy and introduce widespread uncertainty into trade. When trade becomes uncertain, it is difficult for businesses to plan. Furthermore, it is not easy for countries to simply change their trading partners. For many nations, trading with a large economy like China is essential. They rely on China for numerous imports and as a market for their exports. Halting this trade swiftly is difficult, as viable and immediate alternatives are often unavailable. Therefore, nations must navigate these new circumstances by balancing their own domestic needs with their position in the global landscape. The future of international cooperation is unclear. Will trade disputes escalate, or will countries discover new paths toward partnership and collaboration? These are vital questions for global peace and economic stability. Leaders worldwide are watching closely, contemplating the implications of these changes for tomorrow. They are considering the future of trade, international alliances, and the world order. Establishing dialogue and mutual understanding is now more important than ever. These new rules signify a changing world, and countries must deliberate carefully on their next moves. The effects of these decisions will be felt for a long time to come.